Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the CVJ Freedom. This is the latest from CVJ, this time a 1+4, and potentially I would say maybe their flagship hybrid, at least for the moment. It is sporting basically the same philosophy that they have now implemented in the NAMI and in the Mei. Well, actually it was firstly the Mei and then the NAMI, which is the usage of switches to add or subtract BAs in the system. In the NAMI, obviously it's just a 1 BA, so it's either on or off, and then maybe a slight change in the energy level of that BA. In the Mei, it's 2 BAs, so you either have one, the other, or both of them. And now here in the Freedom we have 4 BAs, which are also capable of being switched on or off depending on how you have the switches. This is the box, simple, straight to the point, but you will see that although it looks simple and straight to the point, it actually has a nice little touch which I commend CVJ for doing. Right, on the back of that of the sleeve here, we have some information which actually talks about the switches. And as you can see here on the first, I apologize for using this, but I just don't want to put my ugly fat finger there. If we have this both switches off, then we effectively have 1+1. If we then switch one switch on and one switch off, we have a 1+2. So this would kind of be like a NAMI, this could kind of be like a Mei. And then the first switch off, the second switch on, we have a 1+3, and both switches up or on, basically, we have a 1+4. The rest of the characteristics are what you can see there. Sensitivity 116 dBs, 22 ohm impedance. That impedance does change slightly with the switching on and off of the BAs. It's a 2-pin connection. What more can I say? It's available in 2 colors, but I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, that's the sleeve. And in the box, you open it up like so, okay, which is cool. You got a little paper here, protection. The IMs sit over there. Underneath that, there's absolutely nothing. And then the nice little attention to detail, which I thought was cool, was this sliding drawer. Oops, the cable got stuck there. There we go. Let me see if I can get this out. There we go. All right. So we have this little sliding drawer, which then has all the accessories. And this was actually a pretty cool thing for them to do. All right, so we have the usual CVJ tips, which you know, I don't want to sound mean, but this is the only area where I really think that some improvement needs to be made. We have the cable is actually a modular cable, so we have here the 2 other plugs, the 2.5 and the 4.4 and the 3.5. okay, so we have all the plugs there, well, then the cable itself, let me just put this down. The cable itself is actually not a bad cable. The only little detail I would have liked perhaps to see a little bit of an improvement is just the termination of on the IEM side. The actual plug is nice, the cinch is nice, you know, the cable divider is nice, everything is very nice. They could have maybe, or they can perhaps maybe think about improving this to be on the same level as on the actual plug. That's the only real thing. The cable actually didn't measure too bad. I'm not using the cable, as you will see in a minute or so. Okay, that's. I mean, the cable is fine. I would have liked a little bit of an improvement on it, but it's fine. It's not offensive. Brings the adjustment tool for the actual switches, which is cool, and then it just brings a pouch, which you know, I feel that this product is deserving of a little carrying case, honestly. And actually there is space here. If they actually wanted, they could have, I think they could have adapted this so that a little carrying case could be put inside here. So, you know, that's the pity. Well, that's a little, not a pity, that's the little constructive criticism. This is a deserving product to have a carrying case, in my opinion. All right. Anyway, guys, that's it. Let me just take away this out of the way here so we don't get all messed up. All right, that's it. Now, what do I have then here in front of us? This is really not going to be so much of a comparison, but kind of an evolution of what they've been doing. And I've just got like a small comparison here with 2 IEMs, which have one has a comparable tuning. The other one has been an IM that I've always liked since day one, and that I have actually compared already with the Mei before. And I just thought it would be interesting to have it here so that we can better position the Freedom. As I was saying, I'm not using the tips or the standard cable. In this case, I'm using a KB ear cable. Okay, as you can see here, 8 core. This one is the one that has the supposed Furukawa copper and so on. It just looks good, that's all, honestly. Using KB 07 tips, and I've got here both colors. The green honestly looks fantastic. It's a green shell. It looks like an emerald. It is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Seriously, it really looks very, very premium. Looks way better than what this video can ever show. The black, a little bit more understated. The shell is also slightly transparent, but not. I mean, very, very little. You'll have to put a lot of light to eventually even see anything. But you know, it's nice. It's more understated, more relaxed. There's no branding whatsoever on the faceplate or anything. I guess it's nice because it's been tastefully done. All right. So that's it. So I've got the Nami, okay, which I recently reviewed. Also has a nice resin or plastic molded shell. I really cannot tell. There does seem to be a difference in the plastic here and there. So I'm assuming that one is better than the other. But anyway, it's got a nice shell as well. Overall, kind of similar to the shell of the Freedom. Sorry, if you actually look at it, kind of similar. Kind of the same sort of design. All right, just doesn't have that section here in the back as pronounced. All right, metal faceplate as well of kind of this of a, you can see there's a commonality to a certain extent in the theme. 1+1, as I mentioned. Here we have the Mei, which I absolutely feel is one of the best IEMs that you can buy for its price, and very much a hidden gem under $100. And I would even go even further than that. I mean, I prefer this, for example, to a quartet, to the Kiwi Ears quartet. And I think that already says or speaks very highly for what I think of the Mei. Okay, and then the TRN TA4. It's not. It sports a slightly different configuration. It's two DDs and two BAs, but it's got a tuning very similar to these. That's why it's over here. And over there we have the CCA, the HM20, which is a 1+7. Okay, 7mm XUN driver and then 6BA, sorry, 7BA, yeah, 1+7. That's it. That's basically what I've got here, and I'm now gonna try and see if I can make sense of what I wanted to convey. They all have, like I said, a very common style of tuning, which is and then I'll reference the difference, the different nuances that have then been implemented, which is a relatively not excessive bass, but it's a nice warm bass, which you can notice that not only the way that they've tuned it, but also the way that the fact that they are using slightly different materials on the actual DD itself. There is a slight difference to the quality of that bass. Okay. So as I was saying, I apologize. As I was saying, the implementation of the different style of diaphragms in the drivers does then give us a slight difference in the bass, and you can that's very very noticeable. All right. The Nami is using the latest aluminum magnesium diaphragm. The Mei uses a beryllium coated diaphragm, and the Freedom is using a nano ceramic diaphragm. Okay, and there is definitely differences in the texture of the bass, in the way the bass is done, and obviously then the way that it's been tuned also showcases those differences more or less. besides that issue of, or well, not issue, besides that point of the bass, then the way that these IEMs are tuned is, you could almost say, kind of a W. So you have an emphasis there on the bass, you have an emphasis there on the mids to upper mids transition, so 1 to 2 3K, the dip, and then some emphasis again on the treble. Higher up, there's a dip there usually between the peak of the pinna gain of between, like, let's say 2K and 4. There's usually a bit of a dip, more or less pronounced, which can help out with some issues of sibilance, although usually that most of us are usually in the 5K area. That's where we start seeing, and then again various levels of extension past 10K. But overall, when you look at these four, they have that kind of philosophy of tuning, which, when you look at it on the graph, and perhaps in days past, I was probably one of those people that also, when I looked at it, wouldn't even give it a second chance, to be totally honest. It's what happens when you are still unexperienced. When you look at it, you think, okay, this is going to sound off, but then when you actually listen to it, you are surprised. And I learned that lesson back in the days of the V80, of the TRN V80. Because when I looked at the graph, I was like, okay, whatever, this is going to be a mess. And then when I listened to it, I was really impressed. And the V80 remained and remains to this day one of the nicest sounding, for me at least, IEMs that I think TRN has made. Yes, it does have a little bit of that timbre of the BA and so on and so forth, but overall it was nicely done, and they've kind of on the TA4 rekindled that magic, and it's actually better than the V80. And over here, this is not the first time as well that we see CVJ having this style of tune. The mirror, that some of you might know, is very probably an earlier version of, let's say, the Mei, because it's also 1+2, and it was for until the Mei was released. Basically, it was probably the last of the well-tuned IEMs that CVJ made. Then they went through a phase of having all these crazy tunings that just didn't make any sense. But anyway, getting back here to the Freedom, so I don't ramble, it's got really nice bass. The bass is very nice. It's like the bass of the Mei. It's got a nice warmth associated with a slight roll off in the sub bass, nice mid bass punch. It's not overpowering. It doesn't really bleed into the mids, so that means that then it doesn't really affect the vocals. Male and female vocals come across nicely. Perhaps the male vocal is a little bit more full than the female vocals, but neither of them are an issue for me. Instruments are, in my opinion, tonally very correct. Granted that I did the majority of the listening of the Freedom in the 1+3 setup and the 1+4 setup. Okay, I didn't do a lot of listening to it in the 1+1 or 1+2. I just did it briefly to just see how it sounded, and you will see as well why, when I show you the graphs, why I didn't really bother too much with it. And in either setup, yes, the 1+3 or 1+4, there were differences. In the 1+3 setup, you notice that the above, let's say, 5K area is a little bit more subdued. There's not as much twinklies and sparklies, so tonally everything is a little bit more warm, a little bit more lush. When you put the 1+4 setup with all the switches up, everything brightens up a little bit more. So for individuals like myself, which are semi-deaf, this could be an option. I'm just kidding. But again, it's been well done. There were a few occasions where in that particular setup, and depending on the tip that I was using, because if there's one thing that the Freedom is very sensitive to is tips. That is something that I will tell you straight away, that it is very sensitive to tips. I've actually got two Freedoms here. I've got the black and the green, like I told you. I've got one using the yellow tips from KBA, and the other one using the BGVP, these ones, I forget now, the 08s I believe they are. And why, you ask? Well, because if I have it in the 1+3 setup with this tip, it's where I get the best out of it. If I have it in the 1+4 setup, it's with this tip that I get the best of it. I know it's weird, I know it's strange, but that's how my ears perceive it, that's how I hear it. If I actually put this tip on there with the 1+3 setup, it just doesn't sound as polished. And if I put that tip on here, it just becomes way too energetic for my ears, at least. Getting back into the frequency now. So bass and mids are covered. Treble is going to be very much dependent on how you set it up, 1+3, 1+4. In one way, a little bit darker, more subdued, more relaxed. In the other way, a little bit way more detail, way more everything. So technically more proficient. So in the 1+4 setup, yes, there's more twinklies, more sparklies, but there's also comes with that a little bit more of BA timbre, which you don't feel in the 1+3 setup as much, or it's basically non-existent, to be honest. Again, keeping in mind the price, and the price, although not finalized, I am assuming that the price of this will be somewhere around the $80-90 mark. That is my feel. It will be somewhere around there, which I think is an adequate price for the Freedom. I think it's a fair price. It puts it right at the doorstep of the. It puts it within the price range of the TA4 and a little bit more expensive than the Mei. So I think that's the fair price for it. Also, in terms of like as I was saying, in terms of the technicality, so the 1+4 setup is the more technically capable, more twinklies, more sparklies, better detailed retrieval. Everything is more intense, a little bit more colored as also with that added intensity, because it's that you notice that extra treble energy that you get there is not 100% natural. Okay, it's not bad, it's not aggressive, not done in a wrong way or anything, but it's a little bit more unnatural, while in the 1+3 it sounds way more natural. So basically the Freedom can be had in two flavors. You have it in 1+3 where everything is more organic sounding, everything is more laid back, smoother, so more relaxed listening, okay? Or then you have it in the 1+4 setup where everything is high energy. So you've just had a couple of Red Bulls and you've added maybe a few extra recreational drugs to the equation there, and so everything is way more alive, way more energetic. Everything is more open. What are the pluses and the negatives? Well, the negative of that setup is then you notice slightly more the BA timbre. There is a little bit hint of some sibilance here and there, depending on the song. While on the 1+3 you don't have that. On the 1+3 everything is always very relaxed, very smooth. So based on that alone, and that on that difference that you can have, for me that straight away justifies it as a solid upgrade over the Nami and the Mei. The Mei for me only makes sense in its 1+2 setup. Yes, you can have it in the 1+1, and it's not that it plays wrong or bad or anything, but in the 1+2 it's where it really truly shines. The Nami is being purposely tuned to be more V-shaped to a certain extent, or more intense in that W signature, if we're going to consider them all as Ws. Here, the fact that you have two very distinct changes, depending on if it's a 1+3 and a 1+4, I think that in itself justifies it being an upgrade over the Mei. I'm not saying now that you must go sell your Mei and forget the Mei, and the Mei doesn't make sense. No, I'm saying it's an upgrade or an evolution or something that you can add to the equation, because the Mei, in my opinion, as a 1+2, is an absolute beast. It is really, I still to this day am quite surprised at how so many people haven't really seen how good this IM is, because it is really good. It's well built, it's got a beautiful shell. I mean, they hit the jackpot there, let's put it that way. And to repeat that twice, it's not an easy thing to do, but in the Freedom, in my opinion, they've done it again. They've been able to continue this philosophy of their tuning and upgraded it, because many times we've seen more BAs doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an upgrade. As then kind of semi-compared to the TA4 and to the HM20. Well, you guys know that the HM20 is an IM that I like. It's got a more Harman tune. The biggest difference I noticed between these two is that the fact that this allows then for those two very definite changes in the tuning makes it have ultimately a little bit more detail than the HM20. There's a little bit more polish than the HM20. And well, like I said, the two changes in that tuning makes it more versatile, more genre, diverse. So it makes sense as an alternative over the HN20. As compared to the TA4, it's very much the same situation. The TA4, it's been very well implemented, but the fact that it doesn't have the switches, which is not like a necessity, but the fact that it doesn't have the switches limits it to what the tuning is as it is. And the tuning as it is, it's kind of an in-between this in the 1+3 and in the 1+4. It's not one or the other. It's kind of like an in-between. And with the strong possibility of the prices being very much the equal when the Freedom is launched, I again think that the Freedom is the one that makes the most sense. It's the one that if you don't have either and you are opting for one, I would probably pend more towards the Freedom due to that versatility that you can get. And that's it, guys. I mean, like I said, I can compare this with more IEMs if you guys do want, but I didn't want so much to make a lot of comparisons. I just wanted to use these two as kind of some benchmarks, let's put it that way, because I like them and because I think they are very good examples of either one of these brands, and they are priced more or less at the same value that ultimately the Freedom will also be. I mean, it makes no sense for me to take the Freedom and now go compare it to the Quintet, although if you guys want me to compare it to the Quintet, I will easily compare it to the Quintet. I will compare it to Jazeer 41T. I will compare it to Tennis Chimkara. That's not an issue. I can do that if you guys so desire. That's not a problem. As it stands, and in this evolutionary scale of this CVJ tune, let's put it, let me call it that way, it is a solid upgrade over the rest, a solid evolution, let's put it rather that way, let me rather name it that way, not an upgrade, but a solid evolution of what has been done in the tuning department by CVJ. Anyway, I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care now. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the Freedom. The graphs that I'm showing you are with the Freedom using a BGVP KB 07 yellow tip. Okay, and then I will show you using a medium-sized tip, also of relative wide bore, but that allows me to insert the IM slightly deeper into my ear. Okay, let me start slowly here so that we can get things going. All right, the first graph that we see here is in the setup of 1+4. So as I mentioned when I was talking earlier, nice full bass, a little bit of a sub roll off. There's that dip between 2 and 4, kind of a couple of related peak, and then another dip and extension past 10K. In the 1+3 setup, we lower all of that down, and that setup, although it loses a little bit of information in terms of twinklies and sparkly, it just sounds more organic in this way. Okay, then we have the 1+2 setup, which kind of goes back to the initial of 1+4, just a slight difference in energy, and you notice there's ever so slight difference in that. Although it graphs the same, you notice that with the 1+2 it just doesn't sound as intense is not the correct or the best word to use. All right, and then finally in the 1+1 setup we go back to what was like the 1+3. All right, although there you will see a little bit more differences. Okay, that's using the BGVP, the KB ear 07 tip. All right, now using the also wide bore to a certain extent, but medium size that will allow for a deeper insertion into my ear, or that allowed for a deeper insertion into my ear. What we get is then this. This is the 1+1. Okay, as you can see, this is the 1+2. Okay, and the biggest difference that you will be noticing straight away is how it handles the past 10K. This is the 1+3, which kind of goes back to the 1+1. All right, and this is the 1+4, which kind of again goes back to the 1+2 setup from initially. I'm going to leave just the 1+4 here for a second. Okay, in this setup, and I'm going to go and fetch the CVJ Mei and the Nami. So the Mei is there we go. This is the Mei. The Mei does seem to have a little bit more bass, although when I tested my other Freedom, the difference was less so. It was kind of almost the same as the Mei. So I would say this is maybe perhaps just a little bit of drive or you know, a little bit of because both sides actually measured the same, so it's not like one side measured the one way and I think I would just say it's just the set, this particular set just has a little bit more bass than usual, or that would be. But anyway, the Mei in black, as you can see, is also kind of following the same style of bass, which is kind of a nice thick full bass. It doesn't have as much energy. Obviously it's a 1+4, doesn't have as opposed, it's been compared to the 1+4 version of the Freedom, doesn't have as much energy here in that transition from mids to upper mids, but then it does have that energy there in that 6K area, which the Freedom doesn't have. But funny enough, the Freedom never sounds harsh or sibilant or anything, and I think that's down to the fact that it's also got this little extra energy here of the bass. Right, if I compare the Freedom to the Mei in its 1+2 setup, just for the sake of comparing it, as you can see, they again, the bass is a little bit low because of this particular feel, but they are again, it's a lot of similarities. It's just like the 1+4. If I put the 1+2 and 1+4, you can see they graph almost identical. It's just a difference in terms of the energy level. All right. Okay, so that's the Mei there. Let me put again the 1+4 and the Nami. Where is the Nami? The Nami is over here. This is the Nami. Okay, and the Nami, yes, the Nami does noticeably have a different bass curve. Even when I put here the Mei, you can see it's more. It's got the most mid bass. It's the one that bleeds the most into the mids, while the Freedom, I mean, the Freedom is basically flat by 250 hertz. It's flat, and you know, I mean, you just have to look carefully, and you'll see it's basically flat by 250 hertz. Very, I mean, plateaus very nicely across the majority of the mids in a sloping again, just peaks at like 1.9K more or less, and then the dip here, and then another small peak, another dip, couple related, an extension. If you actually then go and see how everything stays, I mean, everything stays within a barrier of, or a band of, let me see here, so we're talking 64 to 72, so 8 dBs. So that's pretty decent. That's not bad in my books. That's quite good actually. Very much like the Mei as well. The Mei also sits within a nice tight barrier of about 7 to 8 dBs. So the Nami, as I was saying, the Nami is a little bit different. It's got way more energy here in this upper mid area, and then the rest is kind of similar. If I again compare the Nami just with the Freedom in its 1+1 setup, you can see it's way more. The Nami is almost like I would say the 1+2 setup. Very more similar to the 1+2 setup, okay, be it of the Freedom or be it of the Mei. It's more along those lines. It's just got more bass, or more mid bass rather, and more energy here in this 2, 3, 4K area, okay. So it confers it more kind of like a V type signature ultimately. Anyway guys, that's the CVJ brothers there, and now let me just show you quickly the TA4 and the CCA. The CCA is this one here. I just need to align it quickly. I'm going to normalize it at 1 kilohertz. Apologies. So there we go, and that's it. All right. You would think, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the HM20 is going to be better sounding. No, to start with, in terms of the bass is basically the same, because this is a 7mm driver. The Freedom is the 10mm driver, so that is completely it's not even an issue. And then here, yes, there is a little bit more energy. I'm not going to say that there isn't a little bit more energy, but this energy, once again, is not doesn't come across in such a dramatic difference as you see here. The HM20 does sound good, it does play well, but it doesn't have this much more energy than well, it doesn't have more energy actually than the Freedom. So that's it. Both of them are very good IEMs. Both of them play very well. Ultimately, the Freedom just does edge it out and is a superior IEM in my opinion. Okay. And finally, the TRN, the TA4. Again, let me just align it here quickly. And as you can see, as I mentioned, the TRN, the TA4 also has this kind of very similar vibe of curve. A little bit more mid-bass, which is noticeable. You can notice it. A little bit more energy as well in this 2 to 4K area. And the rest kind of very similar. Where do you see the differences mainly is that little bit more mid-bass does kind of thicken up voices a little bit too much, in my opinion. Not too much. It thickens it up a little bit more, all right? And then this here also, you notice more the BA timbre by the way that this whole area has been done of the presence and the past and extension past 10K. Truth be told, the TA4 is probably the better TRN IEM of late, but the fact that it doesn't have the switches that the CVJ has, I think it you know, if they are basically the same price, the CVJ is a more sensible buy. And finally, I'm just going to put the two setups that I used the most, which was the 1+3 and the 1+2, so that you guys can just see how they compare to each other, and you know, we can just quickly have a run through what I just said before. Everything up to about 4.5K is the same. It's then the difference here in the treble up, you know, basically the treble that then dictates how one is more technically proficient, the 1+4, and how one is more organic sounding, more laid back, perhaps maybe a little less fatiguing. Either way, both of them sound really good. And I mean, you know, like I said, by looking at this graph, you would never think that this is as appealing as it is, and this is as nice sounding as it actually is, and that's already the same situation that happened earlier with the CVJ Mei. Guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my very best to answer. You take care now. Bye bye.